Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Moore. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, we are 2 weeks to Christmas, a little under 2 weeks to Christmas morning right now, and that means it is time for everyone to put together their little wish lists. We're going to start today with Ohio State's wish list on the offensive line. Got a lot of guys to talk about. Going to find out what Ryan Day gets in his stocking this year. Do you think he's been a good coach or a naughty coach? And what is he going to get from Santa this year in the transfer portal?
Way to start off the show with a great mood setter, Tom. Fantastic job by you. Boy. And the thing is, we're only going to be talking about four guys on the offensive line, and we could be talking about 14 because everybody is in the portal. I'm not sure if people are aware of this. Everybody has entered the portal. It's kind of like going to a community pool, and all of the players are swimming, and then boom, you got to get out. It's time for the portal swim, and then get back in, and you're wearing somebody else's trunks, basically. I think that's how the community pools go. That might be why they've shut them all down in certain areas.
I think that's because it's winter, or maybe someone threw a Baby Ruth in there. I'm not sure. One of the two.
So we will be talking about the offensive line, and Ohio State's going to need some offensive linemen. They're losing, 4 starters unless Josh Simmons decides that he wants to come back. I've seen people ask, does Josh Fryer have another year? No, he's a 2021 guy, or redshirted in 2020. And so he's 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. Your 4 years are right there. Donovan Jackson, of course, a true senior. He is gone. Seth McLaughlin is gone as well. And that's, you've already lost Miles Walker, and not that he was a starter, but you've got to replace all of these guys. You want to have, 15, 16, 17 guys, and so you've got to find them somewhere. And they signed 3 in the 2025 recruiting class and 4 in the 2024, but you still need to build these numbers because you need guys that can play next year. And at least a couple of those guys, Tom, I think are going to have to come from the portal, and we can talk about a few of them, but you're losing 2 tackles. So you better go get at least 1 and preferably 2 tackles.
Yeah, that feels like a spot where you look at what Ohio State did when Josh Simmons went down, and they tried Zen Michalski, and it really didn't work particularly well in the small sample that you had with Zen Michalski, and then he got hurt. And then when Zen Michalski went down, the next option that they had was move a guard outside, move Donovan Jackson outside. So that kind of tells you where they think they stand in terms of the rest of the depth at offensive line, at both of the tackle positions, really. So to me, I'm looking at getting 2 tackles in the portal because you have other guys on the roster who are probably going to get there at some point. Ian Moore feels like there's some optimism there in terms of his development. You've seen him already playing more than a lot of the second and third year guys on the offensive line this year. But he, that's someone who's probably needs another year of development. He's probably a start him in 2026 kind of guy. And you've got, you have other guys there. Maybe George Fitzpatrick continues to develop. Maybe Zen Michalski continues to develop. But if you have other guys you can bring in and just give yourself more options, if Zen Michalski continues to develop and turns into a good, solid Big Ten level tackle next year, and you bring in 2 other guys who are good, solid Big Ten level tackles, great. We have too many good tackles is not something that any college football coach has ever described as a problem. Sometimes guys get hurt. Sometimes guys just need a rest. Sometimes you can just split the time if you're playing 16, 17 games. I mean, there's a million ways to make we have too many tackles work out in your favor. We don't have enough tackles. That's something that rarely works out in your favor.
So the first guy we want to talk about is Josh Thompson out of Northwestern, who has been a multi-year starter, is a redshirt junior this year, started as a redshirt sophomore, started this year, was an honorable mention, all Big Ten guy, can play left tackle and right tackle. Not the biggest guy, listed at 6'5", but if he's got the feet, then height doesn't necessarily, if you've got the feet and the arm length, then you're not necessarily eliminated from playing left tackle. And so I believe there's a visit coming to Ohio State this weekend, and it won't be the only visit. He's going to be one of the top guys out there, especially in terms of people looking in the Midwest, but he's also getting looks from around the nation. And so that's the first guy. He's originally from Michigan. It sounds like Michigan State might be an issue here for Ohio State. And, a guy that could fit in immediately, a multi-year Big Ten starter. You can do worse. And Michigan did that with from Northwestern with Josh Preble this past year, went and got him as a multi-year starter. And this is another one that somebody's going to end up with.
Yeah, this is someone who, if you come out of high school and you're a 3-star prospect, and there's lots of 3-star offensive linemen, and the tricky thing is which of the 3-star offensive linemen is going to turn into a multi-year Big Ten caliber starter. And once you sort the wheat from the chaff there, then you're no longer a 3-star. Then everyone in the Big Ten wants you, because everyone needs a tackle, basically. Unless you're returning both starting tackles, every coach is looking in the portal and going, boy, we could use another tackle. We could use another edge player, maybe another defensive tackle. There's just certain spots that everyone is kind of looking to fill, and which are the sort of the top of the pile in terms of not only demand, but also, because of demand, what it's going to cost to get someone in. And that's a real opportunity to probably earn yourself a nice little payday as if you're one of those tackles. And really anyone we're talking about on this show is probably going to sort of fit into that model. But yeah, I mean, it kind of depends. He's a Michigan native, as you said. Do you want to go play in your home state? Do you want to go play for it? Michigan State is sort of on its way up, but not probably looking at a college football playoff berth next year, more than likely. So, what do you want to do? Do you want to go play close to home? Sometimes that's an important thing. And, even going to Columbus, it's not that far from Michigan. It's a drive. We've made that drive a number of times. So it is in fact a drive. But, the fact that Ohio State is in on him, bringing him in, that feels like obviously someone that they're taking very seriously, giving a very serious look at. And there's a lot of players who were returning players this year who, probably had a nice year in NIL, who are coming off the books. We'll do this in terms of NBA expiring contracts for the Buckeyes, and some other teams in the Big Ten as well. But yeah, he's definitely someone who, if they could get him, that certainly raises the floor for what the tackle position is. It's not necessarily you're bringing in Orlando Pace, but you don't need Orlando Pace. You need good, solid, reliable. Good, solid, reliable will get you awful far in the college football playoff. That seems like that what they could potentially be adding if they can bring in Thompson.
Yeah, and as we continue looking at these other names, what we're not going to talk about necessarily is maybe the elite left tackle that is out there, because I think they're still looking for that guy. Really, the elite left tackle that is out there is Josh Simmons. And if you want to throw some money at a guy, throw it at that guy and see if you can keep him from going to the NFL, even though the agents have already announced that move. Another guy I want to talk about is Gunnar Hansen out of Vanderbilt. Ohio State has reached out to him. Nothing firm on any kind of visits or anything like that. 3-year starter in the SEC. Was named the SEC Offensive Lineman of the week, the week that Vandy beat Alabama this year. Complete veteran, can play inside or outside, probably more again of a right tackle. And like we're always talking about guards and right tackles, and that's all Ohio State has. And I think that's a lot of it probably mirrors a lot of programs around the nation where it's, there's a reason left tackles are rare and coveted. They're coveted because they're rare and you need them. But all of these other guys, it's like, well, if you can't play right tackle, maybe you can play guard. If you can't play left tackle, you can play right tackle. If you can't play right tackle, you can play guard. So it just filters down from the top to try to make everybody a left tackle, and not everybody can do it because you can just look and see, well, you're not going to be a left tackle. But everybody that looks like a left tackle, you try to make that happen, and it doesn't happen for most guys. But Gunnar Hansen, a St. Thomas Aquinas guy, so an Ohio State pipeline that we know of, the Bosas and guys like that, where there is a history here. But again, SEC, Florida guy, does he want to come north? Ohio State has reached out because they're interested, but I don't know how reciprocal that interest is. But I think if Ohio State calls, you take the call, or at least you read the message on the transfer portal page, the portal of your portal page, and see what they have to say.
For sure. I mean, there are certain programs where if they call, most people are going to listen. And, there are plenty of programs in the SEC footprint that fit that bill, and Georgia and Alabama and Texas and, in the Big Ten, it's certainly Ohio State and Oregon and a few others up there. But yeah, he's someone who it's not as natural a fit geographically, but and he's going to be someone who draws a lot of attention from a lot of the programs that probably are a little bit more of a fit. But he's another one where, again, if you can add him, this is a substantial increase in the floor of the offensive line. That's what they're really looking for right now, is just stability, just reliability on the offensive line. He's not someone, if he was going to be if he was a truly elite player as a 3-year starter at Vandy, he's going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL. He's not, and that's okay. That's not what Ohio State needs. They need good. They need solid. They need reliable, and that's what you can get. When I was searching for him, I had the name Gunnar Hansen in my head, and I typed it, and I'm like, that's not right. He's not the Vanderbilt. Who am I thinking of? And it was the Baltimore Orioles shortstop who, much like the left tackle to right tackle to guard, hey, if Gunnar Henderson can't stick at shortstop, and early indications are that he's going to be just fine there. Mm-hmm. But if he can't, you can always play third base, and if he can't play there, well, you can always play right field. I think Gunnar Hansen's going to stick at tackle wherever he plays next year. Gunnar Henderson probably also going to stick at shortstop.
The third guy we want to talk about is Nevada left tackle Isaiah World. And this is a guy who was interesting, 6'8", 309 pounds. So got the left tackle body type, did not allow a sack this season, is a 2-time All-Mountain West honorable mention selection. He was also started as a redshirt freshman. He's now, like I said, a 3-year starter. And you look at it, you're like, well, All Mountain West honorable mention, is that why not all first team? And I'm with you there. I can also explain that not all voters are very smart about the offensive line, because, again, I have been a voter in the past for all Big Ten stuff, and I'm telling you, you shouldn't be asking media to vote on offensive line. That's just, I'm being honest with you. And not me. I mean, I know what I'm doing, but others, it's an iffy proposition. But also coaches do vote on that as well. And there's a coaches team and a media team. So it's well, why? But then you look, and if there are no sacks given up in a season, that's pretty good. Now, is it because there are 22 holding penalties? No, maybe we've created an issue. But this is a guy that there's been some thought that Ohio State would reach out to. I'm not sure that it has happened yet, but Ohio State has done pretty well reaching out to the West Coast for left tackles in the past, landing Josh Simmons from San Diego State. This guy looks like he's got a ton of potential for a guy with 1 year remaining on his contract.
Yeah, and he's a San Diego native, so you figure there's a decent chance. There are a lot of teams on the West Coast that are probably also looking for offensive tackles. So if he's not right at the top of the list for Ohio State, odds are he's right at the top of the list for someone else. And if Ohio State doesn't get a couple of the guys at the top of their list, well, he might end up right at the top of their list at that point. So he's, this is one where it's not necessarily as sure a thing. Multi-year starter, at that point, if you're a 3-year starter, you kind of know what you're getting more or less. You probably have some more growth and development in there. But when they brought Josh Simmons in, he'd started 1 year at San Diego State and had 2 more years of eligibility. So it was okay, you sort of see the promise and you can sort of project forward. You're getting a little bit more of a finished product when you have a 3-year starter coming in. Sort of like with Seth McLaughlin last year. Seth McLaughlin came in and you sort of knew what you were getting with Seth McLaughlin and you got exactly what you wanted with him. This is one where, you can probably look and say, yeah, this guy either is or isn't better than the existing options on the team. If they go after him, that obviously tells you what they think. If they don't, that obviously tells you what they think in terms of, where does he stand versus George Fitzpatrick and Zen Michalski and guys like that. We don't get a chance to see those guys play very often. You see them play 5-10 snaps at the end of some blowouts and that kind of stuff. we don't get to watch a ton of practice. We don't really get to watch any practice during the season.
Mm-hmm.
So we haven't really seen those guys get extended reps since the fall. So how much better are they right now than they were in August? We don't really have a great sense for that. We haven't seen that in person, at least, certainly. So, this is one where it might be a little bit of a barometer of, okay, how hard are they pursuing this guy? That might tell you a little bit more about where they feel their existing guys are, rather than necessarily just him.
The last guy I want to mention is, I have no idea if Ohio State has reached out or not, but Alex Wollschlaeger, who is an all-MAC right tackle from Bowling Green. So he's an in-state guy, and that way he's from Aurora, Illinois. 3-year starter at Bowling Green, is actually a super senior of sorts. He was a 2020 true freshman year. Of course, that didn't count. He started 2 games, played in 4 in 2021, and that was his redshirt year. So 2025 would be his final year. And another guy that is a veteran that would just be that 1-year guy, as opposed to the Josh Simmons that they went with, the Victor Cutler a couple of years ago, where you're trying to get a few years out of somebody or multiple years out of somebody. And maybe there'll be some of those guys that come forward. But again, he's played a ton, all at right tackle, essentially. Could be somebody that they look at. I think a lot of people will look at him. The MAC has produced some very good offensive linemen over the years, and the neighborhood is, you're 2 hours away. And so there's that. He's a Midwestern guy. Again, I have no idea if the two are going to link up, but I just, saw him. I'm like, hey, if you got a right tackle in state, all MAC, all conference, whatever the conference is, frankly, and you're Ohio State, you should be making a call.
Well, and the other interesting piece of this is you've got film from this year. Bowling Green played Penn State. Bowling Green played Texas A&M. So you have film of, what your tackles look like going up against Abdul Carter and the Penn State rush. Okay, what did he look like against Abdul Carter and the Penn State rush? Texas A&M has had a pretty decent defensive line. Now, they've lost some of those guys to the portal over the years, but you still have a pretty good defensive line for Texas A&M. So what does he look like? You have some decent apples-to-apples sort of comparisons with him. And again, that should be relatively easy to figure out. Is this worth a call or not? To me, if you're a first-team All-MAC player, unless the coaches are seeing something really glaring on the film, to me, that's, why would you not reach out and make the call? He's a Midwest guy. He's from the state of Illinois, but there aren't that many landing spots in the Midwest that are more attractive than Ohio State, where if you're good enough, there is a starting tackle position wide open for you. Both the tackle positions are open there for you. You got to figure the NIL package is going to be fairly attractive. You got to figure Ohio State's going to certainly be in the college football playoff mix next year at the very least. We'll see, where exactly that all shakes out once a lot of this other portal stuff settles down, heading in both directions. But you would think Ohio State would be able to be a pretty attractive destination for a Midwest guy who's looking for a Midwest landing spot. I don't know that I would expect to get both of the Midwest tackles that we're talked about on this show, but I would certainly say you really need to get one of them. You got to bring in at least one tackle, and there may be a player to be named later who's either not in the portal or just someone we haven't talked about yet. But you're going to need to bring in a couple bodies, just because you're losing 4 starters, as we said off the top of the show, unless Josh Simmons does the Uno reverse card and comes back for another year. But you're losing minimally 3 starters, maybe 4 starters in the offensive line. And the last couple classes have been real thin on the line. You've had a couple 3-man classes in the offensive line. The only way to make up for that right now is the portal, because you can bring in guys. They brought in a very talented tackle this class, Carter Lowe, but you're not starting as a true freshman. So you got to figure out a way to kind of paper over that hole for at least 1 year.
Well, especially if that is your plan of attack. We only signed 3 because we're going to go get 4 in the portal. And then it's like, you've got some guys in your own footprint. You kind of have to protect it. Now, there are other feet in that footprint when you're in the Midwest and there are other schools looking. So it always makes it more difficult. But if that's what you're going to rely on, then you've got to hit those in the portal. And you can't be like, well, everybody wants them. It's so difficult. Then don't rely on it. Don't don't set that as we'll just make up for it in the portal. If you're going to say we're going to make up for it in the portal, you have to make up for it in the portal, or else you're not doing your job. And one of our posters on the Buckeye Huddle message board presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus, Triv, posted this about Wollschlaeger, 2,500 career snaps, all but 10 at right tackle. Probably not an ideal guy to move to left tackle, but Josh Simmons was a right tackle. They moved him to left tackle. Wollschlaeger, 6'7", 305, but allowed just 2 pressures on 84 pass pro snaps when Bowling Green played Penn State and Texas A&M in consecutive weeks earlier this year. Not a bad look, and as you said, there's plenty of tape out on him right now against quality competition. And then, Tom, if they don't get anybody in the winter, they did land Josh Simmons in the spring, and however many they land in the winter, they will still be looking into spring. But we always talk about the look on Ryan Day's face after the 2022 spring game, 2023 spring game, when he was asked about his offensive line, and you could see there was a lot of concern there.
There was a lot of concern there, and offensive line is one place where you have to have an answer, because you can't just, you can't just sign a guy off the waiver wire in the middle of the season. That's true of every position. But you also can't just bring a guy in and just, throw him in there as a true freshman. That just almost never works. Like, there are rare exceptions. I think Michael Jordan was the last guy to start on the offensive line as a true freshman for Ohio State. That was 2016. It has been a minute. Before that, it was Orlando Pace, who was the exception to every rule. I mean, you can't rely on that. And even guys in their second year, we've seen second-year guys sometimes struggle to, it feels like you're a year early. Carson Hinsman in 2023 was in there a year early because they thought they were going to have one more year of Luke Whippler, and then Whippler decided he was going to turn pro and kind of caught everyone off guard. And then they went, okay, you. And he just, Hinsman played solidly, but he wasn't all conference or anything like that. And, was better as a third-year player than a second-year player, because you need to continue to develop. It's a very developmental position. So anyone you're bringing in the class of 2025, you just kind of cross them off the list. Anyone you brought in the class of 2024, you probably mostly cross them off the list in terms of being able to be immediate 12-game starters for the regular season. Maybe you can develop a guy, and maybe you have the rare exception of a guy there, but really you sort of plan on season 3, the redshirt sophomore season, being where someone really is truly ready. And again, there are exceptions. They have brought guys in and had people step in, and Austin Sierveld stepped in this year at guard at times. And, Josh Padilla is getting a look right now, and maybe he'll step in, and Luke Montgomery is getting a look right now, and maybe he'll step in. But, this is the end of the second season, not day one of the second season. So it's such a hard position to backfill, because it's an evaluative position where you bring in a lot of guys, and some of them are going to develop and some of them aren't. And it's a hard position to evaluate. It takes a while to develop. And then there's a high washout rate there. And that's true of every program. There's, you can look at any program you want to. You go, Alabama develops perfect offensive linemen. Guess what? A bunch of guys wash out at Alabama too. It's just, it's a very projected and very developmental spot. And that makes it a very, very hard position to evaluate. And you're going to miss a lot. And when you miss, it's hard to fill because it takes so long to develop. So you they really need to get at least one guy in the portal now. And you're probably going to need to get 2 before all is said and done in the spring.
Yeah, and they showed how desperate they were when they went and got Victor Cutler, who never did really anything. He was playing right tackle and guard, and they were looking at him to play center for them in 2023. And now, other than that, they've hit well on the portal. Jonah Jackson, Seth McLaughlin, Josh Simmons. So it helps when you've seen the development at other places and you know more of what you're getting. And so there are plenty of people to look through. Offensive, there are so many offensive linemen, so many starters, I would say, multi-year starters in the portal. Doesn't mean every single multi-year starter is good enough to play at Ohio State. And not everybody in the portal would be an upgrade over what Ohio State has. But there are enough players out there, and they know they need to go get them. So get to it, boys, and then host these players while you're also trying to get ready for the playoffs. What a time to be alive. So that'll do it. If you want to hit the thumbs up on the YouTube, we would appreciate that. Hit the bell to be notified. Subscribe the channel if you have not yet done so. And of course, we did a Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning episode talking about Dylan Thieneman, the Purdue freshman All-American, sophomore leading tackler, 210 tackles in his career, about the interest there in Ohio State and the possible visit there. So you can find that on the Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning feed, or just check out youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle for that one as well. And of course, continue to find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. First month, just $4.99. Sign up, say hello to us there on the Buckeye Huddle message board presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus, where we are talking about Tennessee. We are talking about the portal, talking about recruiting and keeping the guys that they've got now, and all sorts of stuff and intel like that. So find us there as well. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later.